My husband sat across the courtroom in a tailored Italian suit that cost more than my entire car, looking at me like I was a stain on his perfect life. He thought he had already won. He thought the janitor he married was too stupid to keep receipts. But when the judge started laughing, a cold, hard sound that bounced off the mahogany walls, the color drained from Bryce's face. He didn't know I had the letter. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton smelled like expensive perfume and old money. I stood by the dessert table, gripping a glass of sparkling water so hard I was afraid the stem might snap between my fingers. I took a sip, but the bubbles just made the knot in my stomach tighter. I shouldn't have been there. I knew it, the waiters knew it, and most importantly, Bryce knew it. "Relax your shoulders, Cass," Bryce whispered in my ear. His hand rested on the small of my back. To anyone watching, it looked like a loving gesture, a husband guiding his wife through a crowd, but I felt the pressure of his fingertips digging into my skin, a subtle, sharp warning to stand up straighter. I forced my spine to stiffen. I tried to arrange my face into the expression he had practiced with me in the mirror before we left. Pleasant, vacant, and smiling. "I'm trying," I whispered back, keeping my lips barely moving. My feet hurt. "Please don't complain," he murmured, his voice smooth like velvet but cold as ice. "Not tonight. Senior partner Harrison is watching." I followed his gaze. A silver-haired man was holding court near the ice sculpture, laughing at something a woman in a red silk gown had said. That was the world Bryce was desperate to break into. The world of billable hours, summer homes in the Hamptons, and wives who didn't have calluses on their hands from scrubbing hospital floors. I looked down at my own dress. It was black, simple, bought off the clearance rack at a department store 3 years ago. I had spent hours steaming it in our tiny bathroom, trying to get the wrinkles out, trying to make the polyester blend look like satin. I thought I had done a good job, but standing next to the woman in red silk, I looked like I was wearing a trash bag. Ah, Bryce, and this must be the famous Cassie. Mr. Harrison was walking toward us. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt a flush of panic rise up my neck. I couldn't do this. I didn't know what to talk about. I didn't know anything about torts or mergers or acquisitions. I knew how to change a bedpan without waking a patient. I knew how to stretch a pound of ground beef into 3 meals. I knew how to get bloodstains out of scrubs. None of that was useful here. "Mr. Harrison," Bryce said, extending his hand. His smile was dazzling. It was the smile that had made me fall in love with him in the church basement 6 years ago. "It's an honor. Yes, this is my wife, Cassie." Mr. Harrison took my hand. His grip was loose, dismissive. He didn't look me in the eye. He looked at my hairline, then my necklace, assessing my value in 3 seconds flat. "Charmed," he said, already looking past me. "Bryce tells me you work in healthcare?" "Yes," I said, my voice coming out too high. I cleared my throat. I felt Bryce's hand tighten on my back again, a sharp pinch. "She works at Mercy General," Bryce interrupted smoothly. "She's incredibly dedicated to patient care, very hands-on." "Noble work," Mr. Harrison said, clearly bored. "My niece is a neurosurgeon at Hopkins. Perhaps you know her? Dr. Emily Vance?" I froze. A neurosurgeon. I changed sheets. I wiped up vomit. I held hands with dying people who had no one else. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't even a nurse yet. I was a nursing assistant, a CNA. I don't think so," I stammered. "I'm actually Cassie is thinking of going back to school," Bryce cut in, his voice louder, drowning me out. He laughed, a charming, self-deprecating sound. "But you know how it is. We're focusing on my bar passage and getting settled at the firm first. One career at a time, right?" Mr. Harrison chuckled. "Smart man. Keep the home fires burning, Cassie. A lawyer needs a strong support system." He patted Bryce on the shoulder and moved on to someone more important. I stood there, trembling. I felt like I had been slapped. Keep the home fires burning. as if I sat at home knitting while Bryce conquered the world, as if I hadn't worked double shifts for 4 years to pay for his tuition, his books, his suits, this very dinner. "You didn't have to cut me off," I said quietly, once Mr. Harrison was out of earshot. Bryce turned to me. The dazzling smile dropped like a curtain falling. His eyes were flat. "Cassie, honey," he said, and the endearment sounded like a curse. "I didn't cut you off, I saved you. You were about to tell the senior partner of the most prestigious firm in the city that you wipe butts for a living." "It's honest work," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "It paid for your degree." I know, he sighed, reaching out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His touch was gentle now, which was almost worse. It made me feel like the crazy one. And I appreciate it, really. But you have to understand context. Tonight isn't about reality. It's about image. And right now, the image I need is successful associate with a poised wife, not struggling student with a blue-collar partner. Do you understand? I'm doing this for us. For us. It was always for us. "I understand," I lied. I looked at the floor. "Can we go home? My feet are bleeding." "1 more hour," Bryce said, checking his Rolex, a graduation gift I had bought him by skipping lunches for 6 months. "Just try to smile, okay? For me." The silence in the car was heavy, suffocating. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a tornado touches down. I stared out the window at the city lights blurring past. The rain had started to fall, streaking the glass, distorting the world outside until it looked as messy and chaotic as I felt inside. I glanced at Bryce. His jaw was set tight. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He was angry. I knew the signs. He wouldn't yell. Bryce never yelled. Yelling was for people who lost control, and Bryce Hayes never lost control. Instead, he would dissect me. He would take apart my evening, moment by moment, and explain exactly how I had failed him, all while sounding like a disappointed schoolteacher. "I thought the chicken was dry," I said, trying to break the tension. A stupid comment. Meaningless. "The chicken was fine," Bryce said. He didn't look at me. "Okay," I whispered. I went back to staring at the rain. "Why did you wear the shawl?" he asked suddenly. I blinked. "What?" "The shawl, Cassie. The gray thing you had draped over your arms. Why did you wear it?" I was cold," I stammered. "And the dress doesn't have sleeves. I didn't want to look. I don't know." "You looked like a grandmother," Bryce said. He said it calmly, matter-of-factly. Vanessa Cho's wife was wearing a backless gown. She looked elegant. "You look like you were trying to hide something." "I was trying to hide something," I said, my voice trembling. "I was trying to hide the fact that this dress is 3 years old and pilling under the arms." Bryce sighed. It was a long, loud exhalation of air that filled the small cabin of the sedan. He reached over and patted my knee. "Oh, Cassie. See? This is what I mean. You're so focused on the negative. You have such a scarcity mindset." "I have a scarcity reality, Bryce," I snapped. "We're broke. I have $12 in my checking account until Friday." "We are investing," he corrected me, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he used when explaining the law. "We are in a transition period. My salary is significant, but the startup costs of this lifestyle are high. The suits, the dinners, the networking, it's all capital investment. You need to see the big picture." "The big picture is that I'm tired," I said. "I worked a 12-hour shift before the dinner. I have a double shift tomorrow. I'm exhausted, Bryce." He pulled the car up to the curb in front of our apartment building. It was a brown brick building in a neighborhood that was up and coming, which was real estate speak for still dangerous but expensive. He put the car in park and turned to face me. The street lamp outside cast half his face in shadow. "I know you're tired, honey," he said softly. "I know, and I promise, once I make partner, you won't have to work like this." I'll take care of everything. But right now, I need you to step up. I need you to be a teammate. And that means looking the part. It means not embarrassing me by talking about bedpans in front of the managing partner. I didn't say bedpans, I whispered. You were going to, he said. I could see it in your eyes. You have this desperation about you, Cassie. It clings to you like a smell. You need to scrub it off. Scrub it off. Like dirt. Like I was unclean because I worked for a living. I'm sorry, I said automatically. It was a reflex. Apologize to keep the peace. Apologize to make him smile again. It's okay, he said, leaning in to kiss my forehead. His lips were dry. We'll work on it. Maybe I can ask Vanessa to take you shopping. She knows what's appropriate. I felt bile rise in my throat. Vanessa Cho, the junior associate he worked with. The one who always looked like she had just stepped out of a magazine. I don't need Vanessa to take me shopping, I said. I just need, I need to sleep. Go get some rest, he said benevolently. I'm going to stay up for a bit. I have some emails to catch up on. Okay, I said. I opened the door and stepped out into the rain. He didn't offer to walk me to the door. He didn't offer to hold the umbrella. He just watched me go, safe and dry inside his climate-controlled bubble, while I ran through the puddles in my clearance rack heels. The alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning. It was a hateful sound, a screeching digital pulse that pierced right through my skull. I slapped a hand onto the nightstand, fumbling for the phone, knocking over a glass of water in the process. Damn it, I hissed. I froze, looking over at the other side of the bed. Bryce didn't move. He was buried under the duvet, sleeping the deep, untroubled sleep of the righteous, or the wealthy. He wouldn't have to wake up until 7:30. He would take a long, hot shower, drink the artisanal coffee he insisted we buy, and stroll into the office at 9. I crawled out of bed, shivering. The apartment was freezing. We kept the heat low to save money. My idea, ironically. I tiptoed to the bathroom, careful to avoid the squeaky floorboard in the hallway. I turned on the light and winced at my reflection. Dark circles, pale skin. My hair was a frizzy mess from the rain last night. I looked 5 years older than I was. I looked like exactly what Bryce had said. Desperate. I quickly washed my face with cold water. Hot water took too long to warm up, and pulled on my scrubs. They were navy blue, worn soft at the elbows and knees. I loved these scrubs. They were comfortable. They were practical. But looking at them now, hanging loosely on my frame, I felt a sudden wave of shame. Scrub it off. I went to the kitchen. It was a narrow galley kitchen with linoleum that was peeling in the corners. I opened the fridge. A carton of milk, half a loaf of bread, some wilting spinach, and a 6-pack of imported beer that Bryce liked. I made instant coffee. Bryce had the French press, but I didn't have time for that. I drank the bitter sludge standing up, staring at the calendar on the wall. Rent was due in 3 days. The student loan payment, mine because his were deferred, was due next week. The electric bill was sitting on the counter, unopened. I did the mental math, the constant running calculus that played in the back of my mind every waking hour. Paycheck comes Friday, $1,200. Rent is $950. Electric is probably $80. That leaves $170 for food, gas, and everything else. It didn't add up. It never added up. I looked at Bryce's briefcase sitting by the door. It was leather, sleek, Italian. It had cost $400. He had told me it was essential equipment, just like the suits, just like the dinners. I walked over to it. I didn't know why. I usually never touched his things. He was particular about his privacy. But something about the way he had looked at me last night, the way he had dismissed my entire existence as an embarrassment, made me bold. I reached out and touched the leather handle. It was cool and smooth. "We are investing," he had said. But who was the investor, and who was the asset? I was the one putting in the capital, The sweat, the tears, the literal dollars from scrubbing floors. And he was the one appreciating in value. He was the stock that was going up. And me, I was just the overhead. And overhead gets cut when margins get tight. I shook my head, pulling my hand away. I was being paranoid. I was just tired. Bryce loved me. We were a team. He was stressed about the new job, that was all. Once he settled in, once the money started coming in, everything would be different. We would laugh about these days. We would sit in our summer home in the Hamptons and say, "Remember when we ate instant oatmeal and drove that beat-up Honda?" I grabbed my keys and my bag. I took one last look at the closed bedroom door. "Have a good day," I whispered to the silence. He didn't answer. He never did. The fluorescent lights of the grocery store hummed with a low, headache-inducing buzz. I was in line at checkout 4, staring at the person in front of me. They were buying a cart full of food, steaks, wine, fresh strawberries, multiple boxes of cereal. I felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it almost hurt. I looked down at my own basket, a rotisserie chicken marked down because it was yesterday's, a bag of rice, frozen broccoli, a carton of eggs, and a box of tampons, the essentials. I had put back the coffee creamer. I had put back the good cheese. "Next," the cashier droned. She looked about 16, popping gum, completely indifferent to my existence. I loaded my items onto the belt. My heart started to beat a little faster. It always did at this part. The moment of truth. Beep, beep, beep. $38.42, the girl said. I exhaled. Okay, I had checked the app before I came in. There was supposed to be $60 in the joint checking account. Bryce had transferred his allowance for the house earlier in the week. I swiped my debit card. Processing. I held my breath. I stared at the little screen. Declined. My stomach dropped to my shoes. It must be the chip, I said, my voice shaking. Can I try it again? The girl rolled her eyes and hit a button. Go ahead. I swiped again, harder this time, as if force could conjure money out of thin air. Declined. Do you have another card? She asked, looking at the line forming behind me. A man in a suit sighed loudly. I felt the heat rushing to my face. Just 1 second. I pulled out my phone. My hands were trembling so bad I almost dropped it. I dialed Bryce. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? He answered on the 4th ring. He sounded annoyed. Cassie, I'm in a meeting. I'm at the store, I whispered, turning my back to the cashier. The card declined. Bryce, there was $60 in there this morning. Oh, he said. His tone shifted. It wasn't apologetic, it was casual. Right. I moved that to the savings account. I needed to cover a transfer fee for the new investment portfolio. What? I hissed. Bryce, I'm at the checkout. I have groceries on the belt. People are waiting. Just use your emergency cash, he said. You always have that stash in your purse. I froze. He knew about the stash? I kept a $50 bill hidden inside an empty tampon applicator in the bottom of my bag. It was my break glass in case of emergency money. I had never told him about it. How do you know about that? I asked. Cassie, honestly, he sighed. I don't have time for this. Just pay for the food. We'll talk later. Click. He hung up. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, the dial tone buzzing. The cashier cleared her throat. Ma'am, you gonna pay or what? I slowly lowered the phone. I felt exposed, violated. He knew. He knew about my tiny secret safety net, and he expected me to use it to buy his eggs. Yes, I said quietly. I dug into my purse, past the wallet, past the keys, to the bottom. I pulled out the cardboard tampon tube. I uncapped it and pulled out the crumpled $50 bill. The cashier stared at it with disgust. Sorry, I mumbled. I smoothed it out on the counter. Here. She took it with 2 fingers like it was contaminated. She made change. She handed me the receipt. I grabbed my bags and walked out of the store, my face burning. I didn't look at the man in the suit behind me. I just walked, head down, feeling the weight of the grocery bags cutting into my fingers. He moved the money. He didn't tell me. And he knew about the 50. How much else did he know? And how much else was he hiding? It was Sunday afternoon. Bryce was watching football in the living room. I could hear the roar of the crowd from the TV, the commentators' excited shouting. I was in the bedroom, surrounded by a mountain of laundry. We couldn't afford a professional dry cleaner, or rather, Bryce said we couldn't afford it for my clothes, but his suits required specialist care. To save money, I had learned how to steam and spot clean them myself. I was currently tackling his navy blazer, the one he had worn to a client lunch on Thursday. I hung the jacket on the back of the door and plugged in the steamer. As I smoothed out the fabric, I felt something crinkle in the inside pocket. I paused. Bryce usually emptied his pockets. He was meticulous like that. I reached in. My fingers brushed against thermal paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. I unfolded it. The header read, Le Jardin. I frowned. Le Jardin was a French bistro downtown. Very trendy, very expensive, and Bryce hated French food. He constantly complained about small portions and too much butter. I looked at the date. Thursday, 12:15 p.m. I looked at the total. $312.50. My breath hitched. $300? For lunch? I scanned the items. Escargot, steak frite 2, bottle of Bordeaux 2015, chocolate soufflé, 2 people. He had lunch with someone. I stared at the paper. $300. That was our electric bill for 3 months. That was 10 times what I had just spent at the grocery store. That was the money he had moved to savings because we were so tight on cash. Bryce, I called out. My voice sounded small, weak. Yeah? He yelled back from the living room. I walked out, holding the receipt like it was a loaded gun. He looked up from the TV, a beer in his hand. He looked relaxed, happy. What is this? I asked, holding up the slip of paper. He squinted. What is what? A receipt, I said, from Le Jardin, from Thursday. $300, Bryce. He didn't flinch. He didn't look guilty. He just looked annoyed that I was interrupting the game. Oh, that, he said, taking a sip of beer. Client lunch. I had to take out the VP of Archway Tech. We're trying to land their retainer. You spent $300 on lunch? I repeated, my brain refusing to process it. Our card got declined for $40 of groceries, and you spent $300 on lunch? It's reimbursable, Cassie, he said, rolling his eyes. The firm pays me back. It's standard procedure. You spend the money, you submit the expense report, you get a check. It's how business works. But you hate French food, I said weakly. The client loves it, he said, shrugging. You think I wanted to eat snails? I did it for the firm. I took one for the team. He looked at me then, really looked at me. His eyes narrowed. Why are you going through my pockets? The question hung in the air. Suddenly, I was the one on trial. I was doing the laundry, I said defensively. I was steaming your suit. I felt it crinkle. Right, he said. He stood up and walked over to me. He loomed over me, blocking out the light from the window. He took the receipt from my hand. Cassie, you have to stop this, he said. His voice was low, gentle, terrifying. This paranoia? It's not healthy. You're counting pennies and checking my pockets like a jealous girlfriend. We are married. We are building a life. You need to trust me to handle the finances. I know what I'm doing. I do trust you, I said. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Good, he said. He crumpled the receipt and tossed it onto the coffee table. Because if you don't trust me, we have a real problem. Now, can you get me another beer? This one is warm. I stood there for a second, looking at the crumpled ball of paper. Reimbursable. It made sense. It was logical. But there was a bottle of wine on that receipt. Bryce didn't drink wine during the day. He said it made him sleepy. Sure, I said. I'll get you a beer. I walked to the kitchen. My hands were shaking again. It was raining again. Of course it was. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I was driving to my second job, a night cleaning shift at an office park 10 miles out of town. It was 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I had already worked a morning shift at the hospital. My back ached, my feet throbbed, and my eyes felt like they were filled with sand. My car, a 10-year-old sedan with a rusting frame and a transmission that liked to slip, was struggling on the highway. I gripped the steering wheel, whispering a prayer to the God of mechanics. "Come on," I muttered. "Just get me there, please. Just get me there." The car didn't listen. There was a sudden thunk, a shudder that rattled my teeth, and then the engine just died. The power steering locked up. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. "No, no, no!" I screamed, wrestling the heavy wheel to guide the coasting car onto the shoulder. I rolled to a stop just inches from the guardrail. Semis roared past, shaking the entire car with their wake, spraying muddy water over my windshield. I sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, staring into the darkness. Silence. Just the drumming of rain on the roof. I tried to turn the key. Click, click, click. Nothing. I grabbed my phone. 10% battery. Perfect. I called Bryce. Ring, ring, ring. "Voicemail," the robotic voice said. "Please leave a message." "Bryce," I said, my voice cracking. "My car died. I'm on the I-90 shoulder near exit 14. I'm scared. Please pick up. Please call me." I waited 5 minutes. 10. No call back. I tried again. Straight to voicemail this time. He had turned his phone off, or he was on Do Not Disturb, probably studying, or gaming, or sleeping. I looked at the clock. 8:15. My shift started at 8:30. If I was late, Mr. Henderson would dock my pay, or fire me. I couldn't afford to be fired. I called a tow truck. "Yeah, we can get someone out there," the dispatcher said, sounding bored. "Be about 2 hours. $150 hookup fee, $5 a mile." $150? I choked out. I don't have that." "Can't help you then, lady." Click. I sat in the dark car. The rain hammered down. I was trapped. I looked at the GPS on my phone. The office park was 2 miles away, exit 14, then a mile down the service road, 2 miles, in the rain, in the dark. I looked at my phone. 8% battery. No answer from Bryce. "I have to walk," I whispered. The realization settled over me like a cold blanket. I have to walk. I grabbed my purse. I didn't have an umbrella. I zipped up my thin windbreaker. I opened the door and the noise of the highway hit me, a roar of tires and wind. I stepped out into the mud. Within seconds, I was soaked. My hair plastered to my face, my scrubs clinging to my legs. I started walking. Headlights blinded me. Horns honked. The wind whipped rain into my eyes. I kept my head down, trudging along the gravel shoulder, one foot in front of the other. Left foot, right foot, rent, electric bill, Bryce's suit, left foot, right foot, student loans, groceries, Bryce's future. I was crying, but the rain hid it. I was screaming inside my head, screaming for my husband to come save me, to answer his phone, to care. But the phone in my pocket stayed dark. I walked for 40 minutes. By the time I reached the office building, I looked like a drowned rat. I was shivering so hard my teeth clattered. I pulled open the heavy glass door and stumbled into the lobby. The security guard, an older man named Earl, looked up from his desk. His eyes went wide. "Good Lord, Cassie," he said, standing up. "What happened to you?" "Car. Died," I chattered. "Walked." "You walked? On the highway?" He looked horrified. "Where is your husband? Didn't you call him?" "He's busy," I said. "He's working hard." Earl looked at me. Really looked at me. There was pity in his eyes and something else. Anger. "Here," he said, taking off his jacket. "Put this on. Sit by the heater. I'll tell Henderson you're here, but you need a minute." "I can't be late," I whispered, reaching for the mop bucket. "I need the hours." "Sit down, girl," Earl ordered gently. I sat. I pulled his oversized jacket around me. It smelled like tobacco and peppermint. It was the warmest thing I had felt in years. I pulled out my phone, 5% battery. One new text from Bryce. Sender. Hubby message. Going to bed early. Good luck with the shift. Don't wake me when you get in. I stared at the screen until it went black. I barely slept after the walk in the rain. My throat felt scratchy, raw, like I had swallowed a handful of glass shards. But the world didn't stop because I had a cold. The world didn't stop because my car was sitting in a tow yard with a repair estimate of $800 that I didn't have. When I shuffled into the kitchen on Wednesday morning, Bryce was already dressed. Not just dressed, but packed. His sleek black carry-on suitcase stood by the door like a sentry. He was checking his reflection in the hallway mirror, adjusting his tie with precise, jerky movements. "You're leaving?" I croaked. My voice was a wreck. He turned, his eyes scanning me with that familiar mix of pity and irritation. "Chicago," he said briskly. "The merger conference. I told you about this, Cassie. It's been on the calendar for weeks." He hadn't. I knew he hadn't. I managed the calendar. I managed everything. But saying that would just start a fight I didn't have the energy to finish. "Right," I lied. "I forgot. How long?" "Until Sunday," he said. He picked up his briefcase. "And Cassie, listen, I need absolute focus for this. This isn't just a conference, it's a gauntlet. If I land the Freeman account, I'm on the partnership track. If I don't..." He trailed off, letting the threat hang there. "So, I'm going to be turning my phone off. No distractions." "Off?" I repeated. Panic flared in my chest. "But what if there's an emergency? What about the car?" "Handle it," he said. He walked over and kissed my cheek. It was a dry, perfunctory peck. "You're a big girl. You can handle a car repair. Call a different mechanic. Shop around. Don't just pay the first quote like a sucker." "I don't have the money to pay any quote, Bryce," I whispered. "We'll figure it out when I get back," he said, opening the door. "Just don't text me with drama, okay? I need my head in the game." "Do this for me? Do this for me." "Okay," I said. "Good luck." The door clicked shut. The lock engaged. I was alone. I stared at the empty apartment. It felt huge, cold. I should have gone back to bed. I should have rested. But the silence was too loud. It amplified the thoughts I was trying to suppress. The receipt, the declined card, the way he looked at me. So I cleaned. I scrubbed the baseboards until my knuckles bled. I bleached the grout in the shower with a toothbrush. I reorganized the pantry, lining up the cans of beans and soup with military precision. If I could just make the apartment perfect, maybe everything else would fall into place. If the floors were clean enough, maybe Bryce would look at me with love again. It was magical thinking. It was pathetic. But it was all I had. By the time I left for my shift at Mercy General, the apartment smelled like lemon zest and ammonia, but I felt dirtier than ever. The hospital was chaos. A flu outbreak had hit the city, and the ER was overflowing into the hallways. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic, vomit, and stale coffee. "Cassie, room 402 needs a turn in position," the charge nurse, Brenda, shouted over the din, and Mrs. Gable in 405 spilled her tray. "On it," I said. My head was swimming. Every time I moved, the floor seemed to tilt a few degrees to the left. I hadn't eaten since the slice of toast I forced down at 6 in the morning. It was now 2 in the afternoon. I went to room 402. Mr. Henderson was a heavy man, dead weight in his coma. I gripped the draw sheet, bracing my feet. "Okay, Mr. Henderson," I murmured. "On 3, 1, 2. I pulled. A sharp, hot pain shot through my lower back, followed immediately by a wave of darkness that rushed in from the corners of my vision. The sounds of the hospital, the beeping monitors, the squeaking cartwheels, stretched out, becoming slow and warped. "I'm going to fall," I thought. "I can't fall. The floor is dirty." My knees hit the linoleum with a crack I felt in my teeth. "Cassie!" I didn't lose consciousness completely. I was just floating. I felt cool hands on my face. Someone was shouting for a blood pressure cuff. "Get her legs up! She's gray as a sheet!" Did she eat today? Does anyone know if she ate? I blinked, trying to clear the fog. Brenda was hovering over me, her stern face twisted in worry. She was brushing my hair back from my sweaty forehead. "I'm fine," I mumbled, trying to sit up. I just stood up too fast. "You went down like a sack of potatoes, honey," Brenda said gently. She pressed a cold juice box into my hand. "Drink this, now." I sipped the apple juice. The sugar hit my bloodstream like a drug. The room stopped spinning. "I have to finish my shift," I said. "I need the hours, the car." "You are not finishing anything except this juice," Brenda said firmly. "I'm marking you down for the full shift, but you are going home. You're burning the candle at both ends, Cassie. We all see it." "I can't go home," I said, panic rising again. Bryce is away. It's just me." "Then you go home and you sleep," Brenda ordered. "Doctor's orders, or nurse's orders, which count for more. Go." She helped me stand. Her grip was strong, supportive. It was the most physical affection I had received in months. My eyes welled up. "Thank you, Brenda," I whispered. "Go," she said. "Take care of yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you." She didn't know how right she was. The bus ride home took an hour. I didn't have the money for an Uber, and my car was still hostage at the tow yard. I sat in the back, head leaning against the vibrating window, watching the city roll by in grayscale. I got off at our stop and walked the 3 blocks to the apartment. It was only 3:30 in the afternoon. The building was quiet. Most people were at work. I unlocked the front door as quietly as I could, mostly out of habit. Bryce hated noise. Even when he wasn't there, I moved like a ghost in my own home. I stepped into the hallway and froze. There was a smell. Cologne, sandalwood, and expensive tobacco. Bryce's cologne. My heart stuttered. He must have sprayed it before he left, I told myself. It lingers. But then I saw the shoes. His loafers were kicked off by the entryway bench, not neatly aligned like usual, but haphazard, one on its side. He missed his flight? That was the only explanation. He must have missed the flight to Chicago and come back. I felt a surge of guilt. The apartment was clean, but I looked like a wreck. My scrubs were wrinkled, my hair was falling out of its bun, and I probably smelled like the hospital. He would be disappointed. I started to call out his name, to announce myself, to apologize for being home early. "Bryce?" I opened my mouth to say it. But then I heard his voice. It was coming from the living room. He was laughing. "No, man, you don't understand. It's perfect." I stopped. My mouth snapped shut. Something in his tone stopped me cold. It wasn't his husband voice. It wasn't his professional voice. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years. Unguarded, cruel, arrogant. I shouldn't listen. I should walk in. I should make noise. But I didn't. I took off my sneakers, setting them silently on the rug. I crept down the hallway, my socks sliding over the wood floor I had polished just this morning. I pressed myself against the wall just outside the living room archway. "She thinks I'm in Chicago," Bryce said. A pause. "Yeah, until Sunday. I bought myself a 4-day weekend. I needed a break from the heavy lifting." He chuckled. The sound made my skin crawl. "Heavy lifting?" "No, she's clueless. Completely. That's the beauty of it, Mark. She's so busy drowning in double shifts she doesn't have the brain power to question anything. I told her I turned my phone off for focus. She bought it hook, line, and sinker. My hands were trembling. I pressed them over my mouth to stifle a gasp. Who was Mark? He didn't have a friend named Mark. "Look, I know what you're saying," Bryce continued, the sound of ice clinking in a glass. He was drinking. "But you can't just dump a starter wife overnight. It's bad optics. The partners love the devoted husband narrative. It makes me look stable." Starter wife. The words hit me like a physical blow to the sternum. I couldn't breathe. The The hallway seemed to tilt again, just like it had at the hospital. "She served her purpose," Bryce said, his voice dropping lower, more conspiratorial. "She got me through law school. She paid the bills when I was a broke student. I give her credit for that. She's a workhorse. But come on. Have you seen her lately? She looks like a refugee. I take her to these dinners and I'm terrified she's going to try to clear the table." Laughter. Cruel, barking laughter. "I'm just waiting for the bonus to hit in January," Bryce said. "Once that clears and I secure the partnership track, I'll handle the situation. I'll cut the dead weight. I'll give her a few grand, tell her we grew apart, send her on her way. She's used to being poor. She'll survive." Dead weight. Used to being poor. I squeezed my eyes shut. Tears leaked out, hot and fast, running over my fingers. "Yeah," Bryce said. "Veronica and I are going to check out that condo in the Marina District tomorrow. Since the wife thinks I'm in the Windy City, I've got free rein." Veronica, the junior associate, the one with the silk dresses and the shiny hair. "All right, I gotta go. I have a reservation at 6. Yeah, later, man." I heard the phone beep. I heard him sigh, a content, satisfied sound. I heard him set the glass down on the coaster. He was 20 feet away from me. The man I had shared a bed with for 6 years. The man I had starved for. The man I had walked in the rain for. He wasn't just falling out of love with me. He was laughing at me. He was stealing from me. I felt a scream building in my throat, a primal animal sound of rage and grief. If I let it out, I would burn this whole building down. But I couldn't let it out. If I walked in there now, what would happen? He would gaslight me. He would spin it. He would say I misunderstood. Or worse, he would accelerate his plan. He would kick me out today with $12 in my pocket and nowhere to go. I needed to survive. I moved backward. 1 step, 2 steps. My heart was hammering so hard I thought he must hear it, a drumbeat in the silent hallway. I retreated into the bathroom and locked the door with a trembling click. I sank to the floor, curling into a ball on the cold tile. I bit my knuckle to keep from sobbing out loud. The pain of teeth on skin grounded me, just a little. Starter wife. The words echoed in my head, bouncing around like a trapped bird. I looked around the bathroom. My toothbrush was in the cup next to his. My towel was hanging next to his. It all looked the same as it had this morning, but it was all a lie. It was a stage set, and I was the only one who didn't know the play was ending. I hyperventilated, short, shallow gasps. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a vice. "Breathe," I told myself. "You handle codes at the hospital. You handle trauma. This is just trauma." I forced myself to inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts. I had to get out. I couldn't stay here. If he found me, if he knew I knew, I lost my advantage. And right now, secrecy was the only currency I had. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly. I looked in the mirror. My face was blotchy, my eyes red and swollen. I looked exactly like what he said, a wreck. I turned on the faucet, splashing cold water on my face. I dried it quietly. I had to leave. I had to go somewhere he wouldn't look. I unlocked the door. I listened. The TV was on now. The news. He was distracted. I crept back down the hallway past the living room archway. I didn't look in. I couldn't risk it. If I saw him, I might kill him. I grabbed my sneakers. I didn't put them on. I held them in my hand. I opened the front door. The latch clicked. It sounded like a gunshot in the silence. "Hello," Bryce called out. "Who's there?" I froze. "Delivery," he shouted. I slipped out, pulling the door shut behind me before he could get off the couch. I sprinted down the hallway in my socks, ignoring the elevator, throwing myself into the stairwell. I ran down 3 flights of stairs, my breath tearing at my lungs. I burst out into the lobby, past a startled neighbor, and out onto the street. Only then did I stop to put on my shoes. I sat on the curb, shaking uncontrollably, tying my laces with numb fingers. I had nowhere to go. No, that wasn't true. I had one place. Tyler's apartment was on the other side of town, in a neighborhood that made ours look like Beverly Hills. It was a fourth-floor walk-up above a pawn shop. I pounded on the door. Tyler, open up!" The door swung open. My brother stood there, shirtless, a towel around his neck, holding a wrench. He was a mechanic. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Cass?" He looked at my face and dropped the wrench. It clattered on the floor. "What happened? Did he hit you?" "No," I choked out. "Worse." He pulled me inside. The apartment smelled like engine grease and stale pizza, but to me, it smelled like safety. He sat me down on his lumpy couch and shoved a lukewarm Gatorade into my hands. "Talk," he said. His voice was hard. Tyler had never liked Bryce. He called him the Ken doll. I told him everything. The receipt. The trip that wasn't a trip. The phone call. The words, "starter wife." By the time I finished, Tyler was pacing the small room like a caged tiger. His face was purple. "I'm going to kill him," Tyler said. He wasn't yelling. He was stating a fact. "I'm going to drive over there and put a tire iron through his teeth." "No." I jumped up and grabbed his arm. He was solid muscle, built from lifting engines. He could actually do it. "No, Ty, you can't." "The hell I can't. He's using you, Cass. He's stealing your life." "If you hit him, you go to jail," I said, looking him in the eye. "And if you go to jail, who helps me? I have no one else." Tyler stopped. He looked down at me, his eyes furious but wet. He let out a ragged breath. "Okay," he said. "Okay, no tire iron. So what do? We call the cops?" "Cops won't care," I said. "Being an asshole isn't a crime. And financially, everything is joint, or in his name, or my name." I sank back onto the couch. "He said he's going to give me a few grand and cut me loose," I whispered. "Ty, I paid for his law school. I paid 100% of our bills for 3 years. I have nothing. No savings, no degree. If he kicks me out, I'm homeless." "We sue him," Tyler said. "We get a lawyer." "Lawyers cost money," I said. "And he is a lawyer. He knows the system. He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I'm too busy scrubbing floors to keep records." I paused. A thought flickered in the back of my mind, a tiny spark in the dark. "You're so busy drowning. She doesn't have the brain power to question anything." "He thinks I don't have records," I said slowly. "Do you?" Tyler asked. I don't know," I said. "I mean, I paid the bills. The bank has records, right?" "Maybe," Tyler said. "But you need proof. You need to show where the money came from and where it went. If he's moving money to secret accounts, you need to find them." I thought about the locked file cabinet in Bryce's home office. The one he said contained client confidentiality files, the one I was never allowed to touch. "I need to get into his office," I said. "I need to find out what he's really worth, and I need to prove that I paid for it." "He's supposed to be in Chicago until Sunday," Tyler said, "but he's home." "He's meeting Veronica tomorrow," I said, the name tasting like poison. "They're looking at condos in the marina." "So the house will be empty," Tyler said. "Yes," I said. A cold resolve settled in my gut. It replaced the panic. It replaced the heartbreak. "I'm going back there tomorrow. I'm going to tear that apartment apart. I'm going to find every receipt, every bank statement, every lie." "I'll help," Tyler said. "No," I said. "You have to stay away. If he sees you, he'll know I told you. He has to think I'm still the stupid, clueless wife. I have to do this alone." "The hard way," Tyler muttered. "The only way," I corrected. I took a sip of the Gatorade. It tasted like electrolytes and revenge. I waited until 10:30 in the morning to enter the apartment. I sat in a coffee shop across the street for 2 hours, watching the front door over the rim of a lukewarm tea I couldn't afford to refill. At 10:15, I saw them. Bryce came out first, wearing sunglasses and a polo shirt I had never seen before. Ralph Lauren, crisp navy blue. Then came a woman, Veronica. She was stunning in a way that made my teeth ache. Tall, glossy black hair, a white sundress that looked effortless but probably cost $300. Bryce held the car door open for her. He never held the door for me anymore. He usually walked 10 paces ahead, checking his watch. As soon as his Audi turned the corner, I ran. I let myself in with shaking hands. The apartment was silent, but it felt different now. It wasn't my home. It was a crime scene, and I was the investigator. I went straight to the second bedroom, the one Bryce called his study. It was forbidden territory. "Client privilege," he always said. "Don't touch my papers, Cassie. You might mix up a case file." I walked to the filing cabinet in the corner. It was a heavy, industrial gray metal beast he had bought during his second year of law school. I pulled the handle. Locked. Of course. I scanned the room. Where would he keep the key? Bryce was organized, but he was also lazy. He wouldn't put it in a safe deposit box. He would want it accessible. I checked the top drawer of his desk. Pens, paper clips, a staple remover. I pulled the drawer all the way out, feeling the back of the wood. Nothing. I checked the bookshelf. I pulled out his Black's Law Dictionary and shook it. Nothing. I ran my hands under the desk chair. Nothing. Panic started to prickle at the back of my neck. He has it with him, I thought. He keeps it on his keychain. If he had the key, I was dead. I had risked coming here for nothing. I stood in the middle of the room, forcing myself to think like him. I am Bryce Hayes. I am arrogant. I am superior. I don't think my wife is smart enough to look for a key. I looked at the collection on top of the bookshelf. A row of antique tobacco tins he had started collecting because he thought it made him look distinguished. He didn't even smoke a pipe. I grabbed the first tin. Empty. The second one. Old coins. The third one, a rusted red tin that said Prince Albert. I shook it. A metallic rattle. I pried the lid off. Inside, nestled among some buttons and loose change, was a small silver key. "Got you," I whispered. I jammed the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying clunk. I pulled the drawer open. It was packed tight with hanging folders. I started flipping through them. Taxes 2020. Taxes 2021. Car insurance. Student loans. I pulled the student loans folder. It was surprisingly light. I opened it. There was only one document inside, a deferment letter from 2 years ago. "What?" I said aloud. "I've been giving you $500 a month for these loans." I dug deeper. Where were the payment confirmations? Where were the statements? There was nothing. Just empty space where the proof of my money should have been. The file cabinet was a bust on the loans, but it gave me a direction. I needed the digital trail. I turned to his laptop. It was sitting on the desk, closed. A sleek silver MacBook. I opened it. The screen flared to life. Enter password. I stared at the blinking cursor. My reflection stared back from the glossy screen. Wide eyes, pale face. I tried the obvious first. Password, Behaze. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Password, June 12th. Incorrect. I tried the dog's name we had talked about getting but never did. Password, Buster. Incorrect. The screen shook. A message appeared. Password hint, priority. Priority. What was Bryce's priority? Me? No. His career? Maybe. Password, partner. Incorrect. I leaned back, running my hands through my hair. I was wasting time. They could come back. They could have forgotten something. If the door opened right now, priority. I thought about the gala, the way he looked at Mr. Harrison, the way he looked at his mother, Mrs. Helen Hayes, the woman who looked at me like I was a cockroach in her soup. Bryce worshipped her. He called her every Sunday without fail. He sought her approval like a plant seeks sunlight. I typed in her birthday. Password, Helen314E. The loading wheel spun. 1 second, 2 seconds. The desktop opened. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My hands were slick with sweat. I wiped them on my jeans. I was in. but being in was just the first step. Now I had to find the bodies. I clicked on the mail icon. It bounced once and opened. Thousands of emails. Harrison and Blake work emails, newsletters, spam. I went to the search bar. My fingers hovered over the keys. What do I search for? I typed, Veronica. The results populated instantly. There were hundreds of them. I scrolled to the bottom, to the beginning, 6 months ago. Subject, brief review. Body. Thanks for the help tonight. You have a sharp eye. Innocent, professional. I scrolled up, 3 months ago. Subject, lunch. Body. Le Jardin has a great risotto. We should go over the merger strategy. Getting warmer. I scrolled to last week. Subject, weekend logistics. I clicked it. The text filled the screen. I read, Bryce, are you sure the coast is clear? I don't want to run into the help. The help? My stomach churned. I forced myself to read Bryce's reply. Don't worry, she thinks I'm in Chicago. She's picking up extra shifts at the hospital to pay for car repairs. She's so busy being a martyr, she won't notice a thing. The apartment is ours until Sunday. Being a martyr. I felt a hot tear slide down my cheek. I brushed it away angrily. He didn't get my tears. Not anymore. I clicked on another email. Subject, future planning. Sender, Bryce Hayes. Recipient, Mark D. Mark, I need you to look over this draft separation agreement. I want to keep the alimony as low as possible. She's used to living on minimum wage, so I figure if I offer her $5,000, she'll think she won the lottery. Just need to make sure she can't touch the future partnership buy-in. I stared at the screen. He had already drafted the agreement. He had already put a price tag on our marriage. $5,000. I hit forward. I typed in my own email address. Then I deleted the sent message from the sent folder and the trash. I did this for 20 minutes. Every incriminating email, every receipt he sent to Veronica, every conversation with Mark about hiding assets. I was building a bomb, one click at a time. I minimized the email and opened Chrome. His banking tab was pinned. Of course it was. Bryce checked his money like other people checked Instagram. I clicked it. It auto-logged in. Thank God for his laziness. I was looking at the dashboard. Joint checking. $40.50. Joint savings, $100. Pathetic. Exactly what I expected. But then I saw the other tab, external accounts. There was a link to a bank I didn't recognize. Vanguard High Yield. I clicked it. It asked for a password. Helen 314. It worked. The numbers on the screen made me dizzy. Account name, B. Hayes, personal. Balance, $47,322. $47,000. I gasped, a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet room. $47,000. While I was taping my shoes together because the soles were flapping. While I was eating expired yogurt from the hospital cafeteria. While I was crying over a $40 grocery bill. I clicked on the transaction history. Monthly deposit, $1,500. Source, payroll split. He was diverting his paycheck. He had been doing it for 2 years. I scrolled down. Withdrawal, $4,000, Tiffany & Co. Date, last week. I looked at my hand. My ring finger was bare. I had sold my engagement ring, a tiny chip of a diamond, 6 months ago to pay for his bar prep course fees. He told me he would replace it when we made it. He had spent $4,000 at Tiffany's last week, and it wasn't for me. I clicked on the student loans tab on the side. Payment history. Last payment 3 years ago. My head spun. No, I whispered. No, I gave you the money. I wrote the checks. I looked closer. He had taken the checks I wrote to Bryce Hayes for loan repayment and just deposited them into this secret account. He had let the interest accumulate on the loans while hoarding my money. He wasn't just leaving me. He was leaving me with debt that had ballooned while he stole the principal. I took screenshots. My hands were shaking so bad the mouse cursor was jumping all over the screen. Screenshot, save, email to self, delete from sent. I was robbing him. No, I was reclaiming what was mine. But it felt like robbery. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. I heard a noise outside, a car door slamming. I froze. I rushed to the window. It was just a delivery truck for the neighbors. I let out a shuddering breath. I checked the time on the computer, 11:40. I had been here for over an hour. They could be back any minute. I needed to leave, but I needed one more thing, the credit card. In the emails, he mentioned a platinum card he used for the hotel in Chicago, the fake trip. If I could get the number, I could track the location. I looked at the shredder under the desk. The bin was full. A cross-cut shredder. The worst kind. I pulled the bin out. Thousands of tiny confetti strips of paper. I didn't have time to sort this here. I looked around. I spotted a reusable grocery bag tucked between the desk and the wall. I grabbed the bin and dumped the entire contents into the bag. It made a soft, shushing sound like falling snow. I shoved the empty bin back under the shredder. I looked around the room. Desk drawer closed? Yes. Laptop closed? Yes. Key? I grabbed the key from the file cabinet. I wiped it on my shirt to remove fingerprints. I put it back in the Prince Albert tin on the shelf. I grabbed the grocery bag full of shredded paper. I walked to the door. I put my ear against the wood. Silence. I opened it and slipped out. I didn't run this time. I walked, clutching the bag to my chest like it held the crown jewels, because in a way, it did. It held the truth. I didn't go back to Tyler's immediately. I went to the bank, not the online portal. The physical branch on 4th and Main. I walked in, still clutching my bag of shredded paper. I must have looked maniacal. A woman in scrubs, eyes red-rimmed, holding a grocery bag of trash. I approached the teller, a young man with a name tag that said, Jason. "Can I help you?" he asked, eyeing the bag. "I need statements," I said. My voice was raspy. "For the joint checking account, Bryce and Cassandra Hayes." "Okay," Jason said, typing. "For which month?" "All of them," I said. "For the last 5 years." Jason stopped typing. He looked at me. "Ma'am, that's a lot of paper. You can access those online." "I can't," I lied. "My husband changed the password and I need them for a rental application. Today." "Well, I can print the last 12 months, Jason said. "Anything older than that is archived. I'd have to order them from corporate. It takes 7 to 10 business days." "I don't have 10 days, I said. I leaned against the counter. "Please." "Is there any way to get them now? There has to be a way." "I can print archived statements here," he admitted reluctantly. "But there's a research fee. It's $5 per statement. 5 years, 12 months a year, 60 months, $300. I had $40 in my pocket and 12 in the account. I can't afford that," I whispered. Jason looked at me. He looked at the desperation in my face. "Look," I said, "please, just the years he was in law school, 3 years ago to 1 year ago, when the big deposits came in, please." He chewed his lip. He looked around for his manager. The manager was busy on the phone. "I can print the summary sheets," Jason said quietly. "It's 1 page per year. It shows total deposits and withdrawals. It's free." "Yes," I said. "Yes, please, do that." The printer whirred. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. He slid 3 sheets of paper across the counter. I looked at them. 2022. Total deposits $32,000. 2023. Total deposits $34,500. That was my salary, my CNA salary, every single penny I earned. 2022 total withdrawals $31,800. It matched. This was the proof. This showed that I was the sole earner. It didn't show the secret account, but it showed that the joint account, the one that paid the rent and the tuition, was funded entirely by me. "Thank you," I said to Jason. "You have no idea. Thank you." I grabbed the papers and shoved them into the bag with the shredded confetti. I walked out into the sunlight. I had the ammo. Now I just had to survive the war. Bryce returned on Sunday evening. He walked through the door with his suitcase and a fresh tan that he definitely didn't get in a Chicago conference room. I was sitting on the couch, folding laundry, his laundry, playing the role of the dutiful wife one last time. Home, he sighed, dropping his keys in the bowl. He didn't come over to kiss me. He didn't even look at me. He walked straight to the kitchen and opened the fridge. "We're out of sparkling water?" he called out. His voice was tight, weary. "I didn't go to the store," I said. "I was working." He appeared in the doorway holding an empty bottle. He looked at me with a sad, pitying smile. "See, this is what I mean, Cassie," he said softly. "You're just overwhelmed. You can't even manage the basics anymore. It's not your fault. I know you try, but it's exhausting to watch, watching you struggle to keep your head above water." I folded a pair of his socks. "I'm not struggling," I wanted to scream. "I'm drowning because you're standing on my head." "I'm sorry," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I'll get some tomorrow." "Don't bother," he said, waving a hand. "I'll have my assistant order a delivery. It's just easier than relying on... Well, never mind." He walked into the bedroom. I heard the zipper of his suitcase. For the next 2 days, it was a campaign of subtle destruction. He didn't yell. He picked. When I chewed my toast at breakfast, he put on noise-canceling headphones with a grimace, as if my chewing was a jackhammer. When I asked about his trip, he gave one-word answers and then asked if I had remembered to pay the internet bill, implying I probably hadn't. I had. He was manufacturing a narrative. He was building a case where I was the incompetent, unhappy burden, and he was the saint who had put up with it for too long. He was preparing the ground so that when he swung the axe, he could tell himself he was doing me a favor. It happened on Tuesday night. The air in the apartment was brittle. I was rinsing dishes in the sink. We had a dishwasher, but Bryce said it wasted water, so I hand-washed. "Cassie," he said. He was sitting at the dining table. His hands were clasped on top of a manila folder. "Can you come sit down? We need to talk." My stomach did a slow roll. This was it. The script I had overheard was about to be performed live. I dried my hands on a towel. I walked over and sat opposite him. I didn't look at the folder. I looked at his face. He looked serious, pained, like a doctor about to deliver a terminal diagnosis. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began. His voice was gentle. "About us. About the trajectory of our lives." "Okay," I said. "I love you, Cassie." He lied. "I do, but I don't think I'm making you happy. I look at you and I see how tired you are. I see how out of place you feel in this new world I'm entering. The dinners, the pressure. It's not you, is it?" "It's not me because you won't let it be me," I thought. "I'm willing to learn," I said, testing him. "I can learn to fit in." He shook his head sadly. "That's just it. You shouldn't have to change who you are. You're a simple girl, Cassie. You like simple things. And I'm realizing that by dragging you into this high-stakes life, I'm actually hurting you." He opened the folder. I think we need to release each other," he said. "For your sake, as much as mine." He slid a document across the table. It was titled, "Separation Agreement." "I've had a friend draw this up," he said. "It's very generous. I want to make sure you land on your feet." I looked at the paper. I pretended to read it, even though I already knew what it said. Lump sum payment, $5,000. Waiver of all future spousal support. Waiver of claims to marital assets. $5,000, I asked quietly. "It's a lot of money," Bryce said, nodding encouragingly. "It's enough to get a fresh start. Maybe move back to your hometown. You could get a little apartment, find a job that isn't so stressful. You could be happy, Cassie. Truly happy." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His palm was warm. It made my skin crawl. "I just want you to be happy," he whispered. What about the student loans? I asked. The ones in your name that I've been paying? Those are my burden, he said magnanimously. I'll take full responsibility for my own debt. You won't have to worry about them ever again. Because you never paid them, I thought, because you stole the money. I need time to think, I said. Of course, he said. Take a day. But Cassie, the sooner we sign this, the sooner you can start your new life. I've already transferred the $5,000 to an escrow account. It's waiting for you. There is one logistical thing, Bryce said, pulling his hand back. He cleared his throat. What? The apartment, he said. The lease is in my name. And with the firm, I need to stay close to the office. It's crucial for my partnership track. So you want me to leave? I stated. I think it's best, he said. Living together while separated, it would just be confusing. It would be cruel to you. When? Well, he checked his watch, as if the date was written there. I was thinking 30 days. That's standard, right? But honestly, Cassie, if you could find a place sooner, maybe by the weekend, it might be easier. For you. The weekend, I choked out. Bryce, it's Tuesday. You want me to move out in 3 days? I'm willing to pay for a motel for a week, he offered quickly. On top of the $5,000, just to give you a bridge. I just think ripping the Band-Aid off is the kindest way. The kindest way. He was kicking me out of the home I had scrubbed, decorated, and paid for so he could move his mistress in. And he was calling it kindness. I can't leave by the weekend, I said. I have nowhere to go. You have Tyler, he said. His eyes hardened just a fraction. Or your friends from the hospital. Surely one of them has a couch. It's temporary, Cassie. Just until you get settled with the settlement money. He stood up. The meeting was over. He had delivered the verdict. I'm going to the gym, he said. I'll be back late. Please, think about the offer. It's a lifeline, Cass. Don't let your pride make you drown. He walked out. I sat there staring at the separation agreement. $5,000 for 6 years of my life. $800 a year. $2 a day. That was what I was worth to him. I didn't wait for the weekend. I couldn't sleep in that bed another night knowing he was lying there plotting his new life with Veronica. I called Tyler. Come get me. I started packing while I waited. It was a pathetic process. I went to the closet. His suits took up 3/4 of the space. My clothes, scrubs, jeans, a few sweaters from Target fit into 2 duffel bags. I went to the kitchen. The Vitamix blender, his. The Le Creuset pot, his. The espresso machine, his. I had bought them all. I remembered saving for 3 months to buy him that espresso machine for his birthday. I remembered the look on his face, not gratitude, but satisfaction. Finally, decent coffee, he had said. I couldn't take them. If I took them, he would accuse me of theft. He would use it to invalidate the generous offer. I packed my mug, the chipped one with the cat on it. I packed the spices I had bought. I packed the half-empty bottle of shampoo from the bathroom. I walked through the living room, the leather couch, the 60-inch TV, the rug, all purchased with the money I earned while he studied. I realized then that I wasn't just losing my husband, I was losing my history. There was no physical proof in this apartment that I had ever existed, other than the cleanliness of the floors. When Tyler arrived, he didn't say a word. He just grabbed the bags. Is this it? He asked, looking around the living room. That's it, I said. What about the TV? You paid for that. I have the receipt. I touched my purse where the evidence was stashed. I'm not taking the TV, I'm taking the receipt. Smart, Tyler grunted. We walked out. I left my key on the counter. I didn't leave a note. He didn't deserve a note. The legal aid office was in the basement of a community center on 8th Street. It smelled like damp paper and despair. I sat on a plastic chair for 2 hours before my name was called. Cassandra Hayes? I walked into a small, windowless office. Behind a desk overflowing with manila folders sat a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in a decade. Her graying hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was aggressively typing on a laptop that looked older than my car. "I'm Lena Brennan," she said without looking up. "I have 20 minutes. Tell me why you're here. Abuse, eviction, custody?" "Divorce," I said. Lena sighed. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, but incredibly weary. "Honey, if it's a contested divorce, we usually can't help. We don't have the resources for a long fight. If you have no assets, just sign the papers and move on." "He has assets," I said. "He's hiding them." "They all say that," Lena said, rubbing her temples. "Proving it is another matter. Forensic accounting costs thousands of dollars. We don't have thousands of dollars. Unless you have a smoking gun, I can't help you." I reached into my tote bag. I pulled out the gallon-sized Ziploc bag. Inside were the reassembled shreds of the credit card statement I had taped together at Tyler's kitchen table until 4 in the morning, the bank summary sheets from Jason, the screenshots of the secret Vanguard account, the email printouts. I dropped the bag on her desk with a heavy thud. "I don't need a forensic accountant," I said. "I did the accounting. I have the bank statements showing I paid all the bills for 3 years. I have the emails where he admits to hiding assets. I have the account number for the secret fund he funneled $50,000 into." Lena stared at the bag. She picked it up. She looked at the taped-together document, a mosaic of shredded paper that clearly showed a credit limit of $30,000. She looked at the bank summary. She looked at me. Her expression changed. The weariness didn't leave, but something else entered her eyes. Interest. "You taped this together?" she asked. "Yes." "And these bank summaries, how did you get these?" "I begged the teller," I said. Lena opened the bag and pulled out the email printout where Bryce called me a starter wife. She read it. Her lips thinned into a razor-sharp line. $5,000, she muttered, reading his offer. "He offered you $5,000. "He told me it was generous," I said. Lena laughed. It was a dry, barking sound. "Of course he did. He's a lawyer." "Harrison and Blake," I said. "I know them," Lena said. "Sharks, expensive suits, no souls." She put the papers down. She leaned forward. "Okay, Cassandra, you have my attention, but you need to understand something. If we take this case, they will try to bury you. They will paper us to death. They will drag your name through the mud. They will make you look like a crazy, vindictive ex-wife." "I don't care what I look like," I said. "I just want what I earned." "What do you want?" Lena asked. "Half?" "I want him to know he can't do this," I said. "I want him to know that the janitor he married is smarter than he is." Lena smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "I can work with that," she said. "Let's open a file." We spent the next 6 hours in that office. Lena canceled her lunch. She ignored her phone. We dumped everything onto the floor. My system was chaotic. Receipts stuffed in envelopes, bank statements printed on the back of hospital flyers. But the data was there. "Okay," Lena said, holding a calculator. "Let's tally the law school years. Rent? $950 a month for 36 months, I said. 34,200. Tuition. He had a partial scholarship, but we paid the rest out of pocket to avoid high-interest loans. 5,000 a semester. 6 semesters. 30,000, Lena punched the keys. Books? Expensive, I said. I have the Amazon receipts here. 3,400 total. Living expenses? Food, utilities, insurance? We went through it line by line. The numbers were staggering. When I was living it, $20 here and $50 there just felt like survival. But seeing it all added up, it was a fortune. Total contribution to marital, household, and education, Lena said, looking at the final number on the adding machine tape. I scrubbed enough floors to earn that? You earned that, Lena said, and he spent it, and now he wants to give you 5 back. She picked up the taped-together credit card offer, and this, she tapped the paper. This shows he lied on his financial disclosure. He claimed he had no credit, but this shows he has a platinum card with a $30,000 limit. Do you know what he bought with it? I think he bought a trip to Chicago, I said, and dinners at Le Jardin, and a necklace from Tiffany's. We'll subpoena the statements, Lena said. If he used marital funds to pay for an affair? Oh, the judge is going to love that. She started typing a document. Petition for divorce. Motion for temporary support. Motion to freeze assets. We're going to file tomorrow morning, Lena said. Before he knows you've even hired a lawyer, we're going to hit him first. He thinks I'm at Tyler's crying, I said. Let him think that, Lena said. She looked at me. Go home, Cassie. Get some sleep. The war starts tomorrow. I walked out of the office. The sun was setting. I felt lighter than I had in years. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a husband. But I had a number. 186,450. It wasn't just money. It was my life. And I was going to get it back. The conference room at Foster & Associates had a view of the entire city skyline, a subtle reminder that they owned the world and I was just visiting. I wore my best outfit, a black skirt and a white button-down I'd ironed 3 times. I still felt like a child playing dress-up next to Daphne Foster. Daphne was a terrifying woman. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my entire education. Her hair was a helmet of perfect blonde lacquer. Let's be reasonable, Daphne said, opening a leather binder. She didn't look at me. She looked at Lena like she was a stain on the upholstery. My client is willing to increase the settlement offer to $7,000, and as a gesture of goodwill, he will allow Mrs. Hayes to keep the Honda. The Honda is in her name, Lena said, her voice dry, and it has a blown transmission. You're offering her a broken car and 2 months of rent for a 6-year marriage. We are offering a clean break, Daphne corrected. Mr. Hayes is a junior associate. He has significant debt. His earning potential is speculative. You're asking for half of a pie that hasn't been baked yet. We're not asking for future earnings, Lena said. She slid a single sheet of paper across the mahogany table. We are asking for reimbursement, $186,000 plus interest. Bryce laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. He was sitting next to Daphne, checking his phone under the table. Cassie, he said, looking at me with that familiar, pitying smile. Honey, come on. Who put these numbers in your head? You paid for groceries. You paid for electricity. That's called being married. You don't get a refund on utilities because we broke up. I paid for your tuition, I said. My voice shook, but I forced it steady. I paid for your bar prep. I paid for your suits. You contributed to the household, Daphne interrupted smoothly, while Mr. Hayes invested his time in his education. That was his contribution. A marriage is a partnership, not a ledger. Exactly, Bryce said. He leaned forward, his eyes soft. Cass, look at yourself. You're tired. You're angry. Do you really want to drag this out? Do you want to spend the next year fighting over receipts? I'm trying to help you move on. $7,000 cash. Today. I looked at him. He really believed it. He believed he was the victim of my greed. No, I said. Daphne sighed, snapping her binder shut. Then we're done here. We'll see you in court. And Mrs. Hayes, when we win, we will be seeking legal fees. You could end up owing us money. We were packing up our bags when Daphne spoke again. She hadn't left the room. She was watching me, calculating. Wait, she said. She whispered something to Bryce. He frowned, shook his head, then nodded reluctantly. $75,000, Daphne said. I froze. Lena froze. 75,000, Daphne repeated. The car, and 6 months to vacate the apartment. But there is a condition. She slid a document across the table. Non-disclosure agreement. Mrs. Hayes agrees to never discuss the financial details of the marriage, the divorce, or Mr. Hayes's employment with any third party. She agrees to make no disparaging statements on social media or to professional licensing boards. I stared at the number. $75,000. That was nursing school. That was a new car. That was an apartment deposit. That was safety. Take it, the voice in my head screamed. Take it and run. I looked at Bryce. He was watching me intently. He looked nervous. For the first time, the mask of benevolence had slipped, revealing the fear underneath. Why was he scared? Because of the firm. Because if the partners found out he had lied about his background, if they found out he was funded by a maid and not a trust fund, he would lose his image. He was buying my silence. He's afraid, I whispered to Lena. Yes, he is, Lena murmured. It's a good offer, Cassie. It's life-changing money. I have to advise you to consider it. I picked up the pen. My hand hovered over the paper. I thought about the night he made me walk in the rain. I thought about the starter wife comment. I thought about Veronica laughing in the passenger seat. If I signed this, he won. He got to keep his perfect life, his perfect lie, and I would just disappear. I would be a line item in his budget, an expense he managed to minimize. I put the pen down. No, I said. Cassie, be rational, Bryce snapped. The toxic positivity was gone. He sounded like a cornered animal. This is more money than you make in 2 years. You're being an idiot. Maybe, I said, standing up, but I'm not being your idiot anymore. No deal. 2 days later, I was at Tyler's auto shop sweeping the waiting room floor. I was helping out to pay for my keep. A black Audi pulled into the lot. Bryce. He didn't wear a suit this time. He wore jeans and a leather jacket, trying to look tough. He stormed into the shop, ignoring the employees only sign. We need to talk, he barked. Get out, Tyler said, stepping out from under a lift. He was holding a wrench, his knuckles black with grease. Stay out of this, grease monkey, Bryce sneered. He turned to me. Cassie, you are making a massive mistake. Daphne is going to destroy you. She's going to subpoena your employment records. She's going to paint you as unstable. She's going to bring up that time you were prescribed anti-anxiety meds. I took them because I was working 80 hours a week to support you, I shouted. Doesn't matter why, Bryce said, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. It only matters how it looks. Unstable, dependent, vindictive. He stepped closer. And Tyler? I looked into this place. I bet OSHA would have a field day with that ventilation system. One phone call and he's shut down for months. Are you threatening my brother? I asked, stepping in front of Tyler. I'm negotiating, Bryce said. Sign the NDA, take the $75,000, or I burn everything down. He turned and walked out. I was shaking, not with fear, but with cold, hard clarity. He was desperate. He was terrified of the truth coming out. He's hiding something else, I said to Tyler. Something bigger than just the money. What? Tyler asked, still gripping the wrench. His parents, I said. He always told everyone his parents supported him. He told the firm, he told his friends, but they hated me. They refused to come to the wedding. I remembered something. A box. When we moved into the apartment, Bryce had brought a single box of junk from his parents' house. He told me to throw it out, but I, being the hoarder of memories, had stuck it in Tyler's storage unit instead. Ty, I said, do you still have the storage key? The storage unit smelled like dust and old rubber. We dug through piles of tires and car parts until I found it. A cardboard box marked Bryce, College. I ripped the tape off, old textbooks, a lacrosse trophy, a stack of birthday cards, and at the bottom, a heavy cream envelope. Unopened. What is that? Tyler asked. It's from his dad, I said. Postmarked 6 years ago, the week before our wedding. I opened it. My hands trembled. I read the letter. Bryce. We have made our position clear. If you proceed with this marriage to that cleaning girl, you are no longer a part of this family. We will not finance your law school. We will not support you. You are cutting yourself off from your legacy. Do not come back to us when you fail. Dad. I stared at the paper. He knew, I whispered. He knew he was cut off. He told me his parents were just holding back funds to teach him responsibility. He told the firm he was living off a trust fund. He lied to everyone, Tyler said. He committed fraud, I said, a smile slowly spreading across my face. He lied on his employment application. Harrison and Blake requires full financial disclosure. If they find out he's broke and lied about his background, he loses the job, Tyler said. He loses everything, I said. The courtroom was quiet. Judge Patricia Reeves sat on the bench. She was an older woman with sharp glasses and a face that suffered no fools. Daphne Foster stood up for her opening statement. Your Honor, this is a simple case. A brief marriage between two young people who grew apart. My client, Mr. Hayes, is a successful attorney who has tried to be generous. The petitioner, Mrs. Hayes, is attempting to use the court system to extract a lottery payout. She has no claim to his career. Lena stood up. She didn't use flowery language. Your Honor, this is a case about fraud. Not just marital fraud, but financial fraud. Mr. Hayes built a career on the back of his wife's manual labor while telling the world, and this court, that he did it alone. Bryce sat at the defense table, looking bored. He checked his watch. He thought this was a formality. Bryce took the stand. He looked handsome, trustworthy, the perfect lawyer. Mr. Hayes, Daphne asked, how did you finance your legal education? It was a combination, Bryce said smoothly. Scholarships, some loans, and support from my family. My wife contributed to groceries, certainly, but the bulk of the heavy lifting was mine. And the student loans? I am solely responsible for them, Bryce said. I have never asked her to pay them. Thank you, Daphne said. Lena stood up. She walked to the podium. She held the envelope in her hand. Mr. Hayes, Lena said, you stated that your family supported you during law school. Is that correct? Yes, Bryce said. They helped with living expenses. And you disclosed this family wealth to your employer, Harrison and Blake, as part of your background check? I did, Bryce said, looking annoyed. What does this have to do with the divorce? Everything, Lena said, because if you lied to your employer, you might be lying to this court. Objection, Daphne shouted. Overruled, Judge Reeves said, leaning forward. Mr. Hayes, Lena said, I have here a letter from your father, dated June 12th, 2018, the week before your wedding. Would you like to read it? Bryce's face went white. He recognized the stationery. I don't recall, he stammered. He writes, Lena read aloud, her voice ringing through the room, if you marry that cleaning girl, you are no longer a part of this family. We will not finance your law school. The courtroom went deadly silent. So, Lena said, if your parents didn't pay for your degree, Mr. Hayes, who did? Bryce looked at Daphne. Daphne looked at the table. I had savings, Bryce lied weakly. We have your bank records, Lena said. You had $12 in your account the day you started law school. Your wife, however, deposited $3,000 that same month, and every month after that for 3 years. Judge Reeves wasn't writing anymore. She was looking at Bryce, and then she started to laugh. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a deep, genuine laugh of disbelief. It bounced off the wood-paneled walls. Mr. Hayes, Judge Reeves said, wiping her eyes, you are sitting there in a $3,000 suit, telling me that you didn't need your wife's money, while the evidence shows she bought the very shirt on your back? Bryce opened his mouth, but no sound came out. This is not a partnership dispute, the judge said, her voice turning steel hard. This is unjust enrichment. You used this woman as a human ATM and then tried to discard her like a receipt. The verdict. The gavel banged like a gunshot. I am awarding the petitioner $186,000 in restitution, Judge Reeves ruled, plus 50% of the marital assets, including the hidden Vanguard account. Furthermore, I am ordering Mr. Hayes to pay Mrs. Hayes's legal fees in full. She paused. And Mr. Hayes, I will be forwarding the transcript of this trial to the Ethics Committee of the Bar Association. I believe they have strict rules about candor and financial disclosure. Bryce put his head in his hands. I walked out of the courtroom. I didn't look back. Update, 3 months later. I'm writing this from my new apartment. It has big windows and a dishwasher that I actually use. The check from Bryce cleared last week. It was enough to pay my tuition for nursing school up front with plenty left over. I quit the cleaning job. I only work at the hospital part-time now, and I'm actually sleeping more than 4 hours a night. As for Bryce, it turns out the Bar Association takes perjury very seriously. He was suspended pending an investigation. Harrison and Blake fired him the day the verdict went public. They don't like associates who lie about their background. I heard from Tyler that Bryce had to move back in with his parents. The same parents who hated him for marrying me. I imagine that house is a very fun place to be right now. Yesterday, I got a text from an unknown number. Sender, unknown. Message, you ruined my life. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I just deleted it. I'm not happy because he's ruined. I'm happy because I'm free. And for the first time in my life, I know exactly what I'm worth. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.